Welcome to Sex at 10. I'm Rebecca Rosenblat, certified relationship and sexuality therapist and your host, here to answer your questions on all things intimate. Whether you're stuck in a relationship dilemma, have issues with your body, trust, trauma, addiction, or orientation, or just need little help with turning up the heat in your bedroom, give us a shout at 1-800-968-7836 and let's chat. Everything's fair game. If you've thought about it, we can talk about it. Let's begin with the discussion on what women want in bed. And to help me with that, we're being joined by one of our favorite guests, Dr. Jane Greer, host of Shrink Wrap on Healthy.net and the author of What About Me? Stop Selfishness from Ruining Your Relationship, a brilliant guide on being mindful of your partner. So gentlemen, start your engines and get ready to call in if you want to ensure that you're giving your female partner what she wants in bed. As we welcome Dr. Greer to share her words of wisdom with us tonight. Welcome and good evening. So nice to have you joining us.
Thank you. It is such a pleasure to be able to join you and talk about what women want.
Yes, and we talked a little bit about that on your show on last Tuesday. So it feels like we're just picking up and getting better and better. Now, Dr. Greer, many movies and books have been dedicated to what women want, the funniest of which was a blank book published by a guy. So I'm very happy that tonight we'll try to solve some of the mysteries involving that topic, particularly when it comes to our sex lives. But before we do, maybe you can comment on why is it that many men don't know what their female partners want?
It's such a great question because men think that women simply want to be intimate and romantic and get right into it without realizing that very much if you're going to bake a cake or bake anything in the oven, first you have to turn it on and then you have to let it warm up. For half an hour, they say, preheat the oven. And that is so true with women that if you just start to kiss them and then move into, for so many women, touching their breasts or getting more, involved with fingers or mouths before you've really sufficiently kissed them tenderly, kissed their neck, stroked their hair, had some sensual romantic kissing, they're going to find it way too fast, and what would otherwise could and would be arousing is not going to be. And not only is it not going to be arousing, but for many women, they will say, he went right from my breast, and I was so not turned on that it completely turned me off.
The boob grab.
Right? I cannot tell you how many women will say to me, it was such a turnoff. And the husbands are dumbstruck. The boyfriends are, I don't understand. I thought your breasts were your erogenous zones. Well, yes, but first you've got to get there with a little tenderness and a little rhythm and sensuality before you suddenly land.
Well, it's interesting you used a cooking analogy because I'd also read that men are like microwaves, quick to heat and can sometimes be quick to cool down, but women are sort of like slow cookers. It takes a while, but when they get going, they can keep going. So I'm glad that you said, just take your time. A friend of mine, we always say to guys, when you think you've really, really, really slowed down, slow down some more. So
absolutely. And to that point, it's so interesting because I remember working with a couple in my office, Rebecca, and the woman was saying exactly this. I really want you to go slower. I want you to really touch me much more tenderly, really slow it up. And I said to the husband, well, what do you think about that? He said, well, I am going slow. So I said, okay, show me. And he proceeded to move his hand in what he really considered to be slow motion. And if you want to take a record at 33 or 45, in the old days when the records were like very fast or the slow, long playing records, he was going so fast, and when his wife literally took her hand and started to stroke his hand the way she wanted to be touched, slowly. He went. It was like he was thunderstruck. He went, wow, that's what you mean by slow. He was absolutely clueless. So one of the biggest elements elements. And one of the biggest misconceptions is that a lot of times the men actually believe themselves to be going slow, but they're operating at very different speeds. What they consider to be slow is not anywhere near what their wives or their partners experience as slow.
It's almost like in the movies when someone is going really fast, it goes in slow motion. So maybe that's where the confusion is. I also tell people that, foreplay can start hours before. It can be a loving or even a hot and sexy text that you send to your partner earlier in the day, telling them that you're thinking of them. And, if there's little children involved, help your partner take care of whatever, childcare, dishes, whatever it is, it can be part of foreplay. And one of the things that a lot of women love that I suggest to gentlemen that'll talk to me about this is let her have a bath, and while she's bathing, take her robe and cuddly little socks, throw them in the dryer, and when she comes out, maybe comb her hair and wrap her up in a warm towel or a warm robe. It's so nurturing that lots of women say that I just melt in his arms, and it's like, go ahead, take me. So along the same lines.
Well, it literally is warming her up.
It's
and
warming her up.
And making both of you ready for taking the intimacy to the next level. And you are so right in terms of the foreplay starting way before you get into the bedroom or into bed, because so much of lovemaking a lot of times is about anticipation. It's about the build-up. It's about the excitement.
The flirting.
It's about envisioning what's to come. And so a quick little text, exactly like what you're talking about, that says, honey, I'm so turned on, I can't wait for us to be together. The excitement, the thinking about, the not knowing, the envisioning, the planning, all of that becomes so erotic. And that's like literally setting the stage.
Setting the stage.
The romance, absolutely.
Even an I want to can do that. Now, gentlemen, if you have a question or a comment for Dr. Greer, or ladies, if you have additional tips that you'd like to share with our audience, please do call in right away. Let's make this discussion as lively as possible. Speaking of lively discussions, we have our first caller. Good evening.
Hi, good evening. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good, good. Hello, Dr. Greer.
Hello.
My question, what I'm wondering is, when I'm in bed with my guy, even when I was with prior boyfriends, and I like to be belittled and defiled in bed. Do you know what I mean? Like, I need, in order for me to get turned on, I got to think of him with someone else, like someone that he says is pretty at work or whatnot, and I'm wondering, is that, like, that's kind of disturbing thoughts, isn't it?
Well, Denise, a lot of times what we crave, it ties into what was going on when we were kids. In fact, our erotic template can develop between 5 to 8 years of age. So a lot of times when people have fetishistic behaviors, for instance, something happened when they first became aroused. So when you were little, can you recall any incident that was similar where someone was being humiliated or defiled? Because one of the things that can happen is, let's say, little Johnny has a very cold mother and she's not demonstrative at all. Little Johnny, he puts on her high heels to feel tall, like lots of kids do, and she has a fit. Well, guess what? Little Johnny is a crossdresser just waiting to happen because he got such a huge reaction. So is it possible that you felt maybe an unease that later on turned into an erotic feeling, or that nervousness, that anxiety led to arousal? Can you think of anything when you were little that you may have witnessed or heard, or maybe you saw a movie, or you overheard a story, or heard mom and dad down the hall?
No, it was actually my father with me when I was like 5 to 11. But I never got aroused by that, ever.
Back up. Denise, you said your father did that to you?
Yeah, he used to do stuff.
Okay,
yeah.
so Denise, you're talking about trauma reenactment. It's not just a fetish. Fetish can sometimes be, maybe an earlier partner, but this sounds like trauma reenactment to me, where you're kind of reliving that again and again, which is very serious. So then it's not an erotic play. If it was just a fetish, I'd say, okay, fine. If it's doing it for you, that's fine. But it sounds very much like trauma reenactment to me. Dr. Greer, do you have something to add to that?
Yeah, I agree with you, excuse me, 100%. And sometimes what happens in order to survive the trauma, it becomes eroticized in a way that even though it feels very devaluing and humiliating in the sexuality of it, it becomes exciting and a turn-on, so that it's a way to encompass and be at
cope
ease
with it.
And be at ease with the climax and orgasm that may result. So that because there's a certain element and degree of shame and contempt that can come into play when there is that kind of trauma that takes place.
And you know what, Denise, one of the things that a lot of people who've been abused, a lot of incest survivors, don't understand, what's confusing for them and what keeps them from getting help from a therapist is, like even if you don't want to see an awful picture, if your eyes are working, I show you an awful picture, you're going to see it. If I'm making a screechy noise, you don't want to hear it, but your ears work, you'll hear it. If I give you something horrible to eat, even though you hate the taste and you don't want it, your taste buds will taste it. Same way, when you get touch in certain areas, your body can respond by being aroused, because the nerve endings in that area, they're supposed to arouse you. So the nerve endings are doing what they're supposed to, whether you want to or not. And that can be really confusing for a lot of people. They're saying, how did I enjoy that? How did I become aroused by that? Does that kind of make sense? Is that something you can identify with, Denise?
Well, there was one thing he used to do, like rub himself on, and any time I'd feel that, I can't stand it from my boyfriends. But do you think if I did get therapy that things would change?
Yes, it's very
Absolutely.
important. It's very important. Yeah, I encourage you very, very much. This is very serious stuff, because you're reliving that trauma again and again. And I want sex to be a pleasurable, enjoyable experience for you. And sometimes these things can also tie into addictions. A lot of stuff can happen. If it was just a fetish that you were enjoying, it would be different. But this really sounds like trauma reenactment, especially you were abused, you're an incest survivor. And I take it you've never taken any kind of therapy for it? You've never done any therapy?
No.
Okay. Oh, Denise, you really have to sit down with a therapist who specializes in this, and you need to work through this, because I don't want sex to be a degrading or a traumatizing experience for you. So please promise me that you will find a therapist, and if you need help, could you please write me an email, and I'll help you find someone, okay? Write me an email, but it's really important. Or you can just go to Psychology Today, and you can find out psychologytoday.com. You can find someone in your area. But make sure that they're specialized, because this is very specific work. The person needs to specialize, particularly in sexual work. Some people will do regression or hypnosis. They'll try to take you back. But it can really, really freak you out. You don't want to open up a wound and not know what to do with it. So a therapist who's doing work with you should be able to work with you in a way that feels safe and that doesn't re-traumatize you. Because sometimes when people get you to revisit it, you can become re-traumatized and you can start post-traumatic stress disorder. So I really need you to promise me. Will you promise me that, Denise, that you will?
I promise you I will email you, Rebecca. I promise.
Okay. Thank you for your call. I'm really glad you called. I'm so glad you called, and it must have been a tough step for you. So thank you. Dr. Greer, we have another call, but please don't go away, because we still have a lot going on in our discussion. Mike, we're going over to you. Good evening. What is your question? Hi, Mike.
Hi there. My name is Mike. I was wanting to know that if you could help me out with a certain problem that I'm having.
Okay.
Every single time when I come home from work, and you wanna be able to get down and do like the stuff. You know what I'm saying? I just don't want to get so what's it called? I don't feel comfortable saying it. my wife is always she's always tired. She wants to go right to bed.
So you guys are off in your timing, so you come home and you want to fool around, but she's tired. Is this something you expect daily from her?
Yeah, basically around like a year ago, we would be doing this.
Hold on to that thought just for a second, because I don't want to rush through your call. We're taking a little break, so just hold on. We'll come back to you. We'll be right back. Keep your calls coming, and let's discuss sex, relationships, romance, or whatever else rocks your boat. And keep it locked on Rogers TV, because we have lots more great stuff still ahead, including your calls. So pick up that phone and call so we can connect. And Dr. Greer will be right back.